Hi guys, so welcome back to my YouTube channel. So for today's video, we will discuss the continuation of discussion ng ating quiz number 1 sa cost accounting. So doon naman tayo doon sa ating computation part, which is yung start tayo sa number 1. So normally ginagawa natin to sa Excel file. So i-try naman natin yung as if gumagawa tayo sa papel para let's say kung magiging effective. Pero kung hindi, balik na lang tayo doon sa Excel file. So, let's proceed now to answer the problem. So, sa number 1, ang tinatanong dito, how much is the direct materials used? So, dahil ang hinahanap lang naman dyan is direct materials used. So, bago tayo pumunta doon sa mga given, so pwede na tayong gumawa ng ating T account, diba? So, yung T account, meron tayo dyang raw materials. So, lagay natin ng details. So, we have the beginning inventory. Then, we have the purchases here, diba? Tapos meron din tayo ditong end. Then meron tayo ditong materials used o yung ating direct materials. So ilagay natin yung mga figures na available sa taas. So sabi daw dyan, nag-increase daw yung raw materials to 45,000 pesos. So pwede kayong mag-assume ng figures or kaya naman pwede na lang natin gawing 0 yung isa. Tapos yung isa ay yung naging bagong niyang figures. So dahil sinabi sa statement, nag-increase daw yung raw materials ng 45,000. So let's assume the beginning inventory is as 0. So dahil nag-increase yan, so gawin natin tong 45,000 pesos. Okay? So ang hinahanap na lang natin, purchases at direct materials used. So dahil lang hinahanap ay direct materials used, so hanapin natin yung raw materials purchase. So meron tayo diyang raw materials purchase amounting to 1,290,000 pesos. Yan. So direct labor, wala po yung kinalaman sa direct materials used. Factory overhead, wala din yung kinalaman. So, however, meron tayong freight out amounting to 135,000 pesos. Ang alam naman natin, wala rin yung kinalaman sa ating direct materials kasi ang freight out is considered as selling expense. So, this data must be ignored. So, panggulo lang yan. So, lumalabas, meron na po tayong beginning inventory which is 0. And we have purchases 1,290,000. Then meron tayong end na 45,000. So yung remaining amount ay yung ilalagay natin sa direct materials used. So 1,290,000 minus 45,000. So ang magiging result ng ating direct materials is 1,245,000 pesos. So 1,245,000 pesos. So this should be the value of direct materials used. Okay, so let's proceed to our second problem, which is problem number 2. So in this case, ang hinahanap po natin dito ay direct materials used, work in process beginning, and work in process ending. So let's start reading the given. So sabi daw dyan, we have per company who manufactures customized table and uses job cost system in accounting for its cost. You obtain the following information for the year 2020. So as I mentioned earlier, kapag magsasagot po tayo ng mga problem, lalo na computation, para hindi masayang yung oras nyo, dumiretso na agad kayo doon sa ating mga requirements. So ang mga requirements natin is to find the direct materials used, work in process beginning, and work in process ending. So isasahin mo lang yung ating mga given kung maapektuhan ba yung ating mga requirements para ma-consider natin mamaya sa computation. So isa-isahin po natin. So yung unang requirement, ang sabi dyan, the work in process on January 1, which is the work in process beginning, was 20% less than the work in process ending, which is December 31. So in this case, hindi provided yung actual figure kasi nga nawawala. So pero nagbigay po ng given which is in the form of percentage. So gagamitin po natin 'yan para ma-determine natin yung ating hinahanap na beginning WIP tsaka yung ending WIP. So since the beginning inventory is 20% less than the work in process ending, so let's lagyan na natin ng mga information. So yung ating ending, gawin natin yang 100%. Tapos yung ating beginning, gagawin po natin yung 80%. Bakit ayun nilagay natin? Kasi nga 20% less than. So 100% yung ending, so less 20, so ang ating beginning ay 80%. So next statement, so the total manufacturing cost added during the year, which is the 900,000 pesos daw. And based on normal costing, so nagbigay pa ng mga other information. So ito, maapektuhan ba yung ating WIP So maapektuhan po yan kasi ang ating WIP ay doon nadadagdagan kapag meron po tayong manufacturing cost at nababawasan kapag meron tayong cost of goods manufactured. Since one of the requirements is to find the direct materials used, which is part of the manufacturing cost, so pwede na po nating gamitin yung ating statement number 2. So ilagay po muna natin yung ating manufacturing cost composition. So meron tayo diyang direct materials, direct labor, and we have the factory overhead. So ang nawawala po ay yung direct materials. So based dun sa ating problem, binigay na po ang total manufacturing cost. So di na tayo kailangan mag-isip, ilalagay mo na lang 900,000 pesos. So sabi daw dyan, yung 900,000 pesos, another statement, 72% of direct labor cost was applied to the factory overhead. So ilagay mo lang sa gilid. 72% daw ng DL ay factory overhead. Ang problema, hindi rin provided si direct labor. Ang next statement sinabi dyan, 25% of the manufacturing cost is dedicated to the factory overhead. So ang given lang na rate is yung factory overhead, tapos ang base natin is yung manufacturing cost. So dahil given naman na ang manufacturing cost which is 900,000 pesos, so ang gagawin nyo lang po is to compute for the factory overhead applied which is 25% of that. So 900,000 pesos times 25%, so our factory overhead applied will be 225,000 pesos. Okay? So dahil given na ang ating factory overhead applied which is 225,000 pesos, so pwede na po nating balikan yung ating kaninang statement na sinasabi doon na 72% of direct labor will be applied to other factory overhead. So dahil 72% of that, so given na yung 72%, ang nawawala na lang po is yung ating 100% which is the direct labor. So para makuha ang direct labor, 225,000 divided by 72%. So ang lalabas na result doon ay 312,500. So 312,500, that will be our direct labor. So dahil kompleto na, meron na tayong direct labor, factory overhead, and we also have the manufacturing cost. So ang nawawala na lang is yung direct materials, so pwedeng na po natin yung i-less. So manufacturing cost minus factory overhead minus direct labor, that will be direct materials. So 900,000 minus 225,000 pesos minus 312,000 pesos. So direct materials used is 362,500. Which is, ito yung ating first requirement na letter A. So lagay natin dito ay 362,500. Okay na tayo dun sa first requirement. So next requirement tayo. So sabi daw dyan, hanapin na natin yung work in process beginning tapos yung ending. Ang problem, ang binigay lang po percentage tapos nagbigay lang ng manufacturing cost tapos dun sa last statement, nagbigay ng total cost of goods manufactured. So para hindi ka mahirapan, edi mag-create tayo ng ating T account, di ba? So sa T account natin ng WIP, alam natin meron tayo diyang beginning, tapos meron tayo diyang manufacturing cost, dun sa right side we have the ending, tapos meron tayong cost of goods manufactured. So, apat yung ating given. So, check natin yung mga pwede nating ilagay. So, given na yung manufacturing cost, nakalagay dyan ay 900K. Tapos, yung ating cost of goods manufactured, we have 850,000 pesos. Yan. So, as you can see, ang nawawala, beginning at ending, pero nagbigay po ng rate. So, para hindi kayo mahirapan, edi kuhaan nyo na lang po yung difference ng manufacturing cost tapos yung cost of goods manufactured. So, ito yung mga magaling na mag-analyze. So, ang gagawin nyo lang, 900,000, tapos cost of goods manufactured, 850,000 pesos. So, lumalabas yung ating manufacturing cost ay hindi lahat na buo or hindi lahat yan ay natapos during the period. Kasi yung natapos lang natin is 850,000 pesos pero yung ating na-manufacture during the year is 900,000 pesos. So yung difference niyan, that will be the difference doon ng ating beginning inventory tsaka ng ending inventory. So 900,000 pesos minus 850,000 pesos. So yung difference niyan ay 50,000 pesos. So yung 50,000 pesos, this represents the 20% gap between the beginning inventory and the ending inventory. So para makuha mo yung 100%, so gagawin mo lang 50,000 pesos divided by 20%, which is the difference between the ending inventory and the beginning inventory. So 50,000 divided by 20%, ang lalabas na result dyan will be 250,000 pesos. So yung 250,000 pesos, this represents the ending inventory. So lalagay mo dyan sa ending 250,000 pesos. So dahil nga ang difference nun ay 50,000 pesos, so pwede ka na ditong mag-articulate or mag-compute. So 250 plus 850 minus 900,000 pesos. So ang lalagay po natin sa beginning will be 200K or 200,000 pesos. This represents the beginning balance of the work in process inventory. So to check kung tama ba yung 200,000, edi computein mo 250,000 pesos times 80%. So ang lalabas na result dyan, the same, which is 200,000 pesos. So therefore, the work in process beginning, ang ilalagay po natin dito ay 200,000 pesos. Tapos yung ending natin, naka-complete natin kanina, we have 250,000 pesos. So, yan po yung answer. However, hindi naman lahat kaya mag-analyze ng ganun kabilis. So, kung kailangan mo ng time para maintindihan yan, so pwede tayo humingi ng tulong ng algebraic method. So, sa algebraic method, ilalatag mo lang yung mga ating formula. So, alam naman natin yung formula. We have beginning plus manufacturing cost. So, which is, alam naman natin, ang result niyan is total goods placed in process. So, dun sa right side, meron tayong cost of goods, manufactured plus end. Diba? So, ilagay na natin yung mga available na data. So, sa beginning, hindi available. Pero yung manufacturing cost available na. So, meron tayo dyang 900,000 pesos. Cost of goods manufactured available, we have 850,000 pesos. Yung ending hindi available kasi nga nawawala. So, ilagay mo. So, ilagay mo yung figure. So, sabi daw dyan, ilagay ko lang dito sa taas. So, another formula to get the beginning inventories, di ba? So, meron tayo dyan, beginning inventory is equal to 80% ng ending, di ba? So, gamitin natin tong formula na to. So, ibig sabihin, by way of substitution, so yung B, palitan po natin yan ng 80% E, di ba? Plus 900,000 pesos equals 850,000 pesos plus E. So, para hindi ka malito, lagyan mo 100%. So, 100% ng E, tapos 80% ng E naman yung beginning. So, pag sama-samahin lang natin yung mga magkakamuka, di ba? So, ano ba yung mga magkakamuka dyan? So, meron tayo ditong 900,000 minus 850,000. Tapos, yung ito naman, ending, which is 100%, minus 80% ng ending. So, magkamukha na yan. So, ang magiging result niyan ay 20% end. Tapos, dun sa kabila, we have 900,000 minus 850. So, we have 50,000 pesos. So, divide mo sa 20%. Divide mo to sa 20%. So, magiging result niyan ay 250,000 pesos, which represent the WIP end. Okay? Kung mapapansin nyo, parehas nyo ng result sa taas. Yung ginawa natin kaninang mabilisang analysis. So, dahil meron na tayong WIP end, which is 250,000 pesos, multiply mo lang yan dun sa 80% para makuha naman yung beginning. So, para makuha yung beginning, so 80% ng 250,000 pesos, so ang lalabas na result dyan ay 200,000 pesos, which is also the same with our analysis earlier. So therefore, kahit anong method yung gamitin mo, dapat magiging same lang yung result. Kung nagmamadali ka, pwede mo nang gamitin yung diniscuss ko kanina, which is ito. Pero kung gusto mong makasure, mas maganda gamitin mo itong algebraic method. So whichever applicable to you, okay lang po yan. Basta yung magiging result natin parehas. So yung result natin, direct materials, we have 362,500. And the work in process beginning, we have 200,000 pesos. And work in process ending is 250,000 pesos. Okay, so let's proceed to problem number 3, computation ulit. So, ang requirements natin sa problem number 3 is to determine the direct materials used, raw materials beginning, which is January 1, then the applied factory overhead, and if there is any, i-compute din daw ang under or over applied factory overhead. So, based on the information, para pinapagawa na tayo ng cost of goods sold report. So, para hindi tayo mahirapan, so prepare na natin yung ating mga major T accounts. So, na-discuss na natin. So, meron tayong 3 major T accounts na kailangang i-maintain. We have the raw materials, the work in process, and we also have the finished goods. Yan. So, mamaya kailanganin natin. So, mas magandang ready na, di ba? So, ilagay lang natin yung mga possible na pwede nating ilagay based dun sa mga data. So, sabi dyan, provided ang work in process beginning January 1, so lagay natin dito ay 60,000 pesos. Materials purchase, so lagay natin dito 78,000 pesos under raw materials. Then, finished goods January, which is 100,000 pesos, so lalagay natin dito 100,000 pesos. Materials December 31, which is raw materials ending, amounting to 30,000. So, lagay natin dito 30,000 pesos. Then, we also have finished goods ending 120,000 pesos. So, ilalagay natin dito 120,000 pesos. Then, actual factory overhead. So, dahil actual factory overhead is not part of the T account kasi iba versus natin yan sa applied, ang nire-record lang natin sa work in process is yung applied factory overhead. So, i-hold muna natin tong actual factory overhead. Gagamitin natin yan later. So, dito ko na lang ilagay factory overhead control, which is 300,000 pesos. Gagamitin later. Then, given na din ang cost of goods sold, ang cost of goods sold natin ay 600,000 pesos. So, may binigay din na yung mga information sa baba. Sabi daw dyan, the factory overhead is applied at 200% of direct labor cost. So, nilalagay natin yan dito. So, para hindi tayo mahirapan, ilagay natin sa ilalim. So, ano ba yung composition ng ating manufacturing cost? We have direct materials, direct labor, and we have the factory overhead. So, sabi daw dyan, yung factory overhead ay 200% ng direct labor. Okay? So, may mga binigay dyan ng mga information. Sabi daw dyan, jobs still in process on December 31 have charged direct materials 12,000, direct labor 24,000. Then, wala na binigay na other information. So, ang sinasabi lang dito dahil job order costing system tayo, so yung still in job, this represents the ending inventory of our work in process. So, para makompute natin yung ending inventory ng work in process, so kuhain natin yung data na available doon sa ating given. So, sabi daw dyan, ang natitira na lang sa production is yung materials amounting to 12,000 pesos. So, magkakreate din tayo ng manufacturing cost which is related to the work in process ending. So, direct labor, we have factory overhead. So, magkano ba yung direct materials na natira sa production? Sabi daw dyan, meron tayong 12,000. Yung direct labor, we have 24,000. So, factory overhead hindi given pero kaya natin compute kasi sabi daw dyan, 200% of the direct labor is applied to factory overhead. So, 24,000 times 200%, so that will be 48,000 pesos. So, lagay natin 48,000 pesos. So, therefore, the manufacturing cost which represents the WIP ending will be 12,000 plus 24 plus 48. So, i-plus nyo lang po lahat yan. So, magiging result natin ay 84,000 pesos. So, dahil meron na tayong work in process ending, 84,000, lagay natin sa taas. 84,000 pesos. Yan. So, punta tayo dun sa finished goods inventory. So, ano na lang yung nawawala dyan? Cost of goods manufactured. So, to get the cost of goods manufactured, simply add finished goods ending, 120,000, plus cost of goods sold na 600,000. So, magiging cost of goods manufactured natin will be 620,000 pesos. So, ayun lang din naman yung ipo-forward natin sa taas na pinorward natin sa finished goods from WIP to finished goods. So, lagay natin dito ay 620,000 pesos. So, para makuha natin yung ating manufacturing cost, which is kailangan nating makuha, so dahil available na yung WIP ending na na-compute natin kanina, which is 84,000 pesos, plus the cost of goods manufactured na 620,000 pesos, so ililess natin yung WIP beginning na 60,000 pesos. So, our manufacturing cost will be 644,000 pesos. So, lagay natin dito ay 644,000 pesos. So, meron na tayong manufacturing cost na 644. So, i-distribute natin yan. So sabi natin kanina, so may binigay diyan na information. So yung actual direct labor hours daw natin ay 20,000 hours, tapos 8 pesos daw per hour. So kuhain nyo lang po yan. So 20,000 times 8 pesos per hour, so meron tayong ilalagay dyan na 160,000 pesos. So nakuha yung 160,000 pesos, 20,000 times 8 pesos per hour. So sabi ulit dyan, 20% of direct labor is applied to factory overhead. So 160 times 200%. So ang ilalagay natin sa factory overhead ay 320,000 pesos. So kuhain lang natin yung difference para naman may ilalagay tayo sa ating direct materials. So 644 minus 320,000 pesos minus 160. So our direct materials used will be 164,000 pesos. So 164,000 pesos, this will be the amount to be reflected on the direct materials used, na which is requirement number 1. So lagay natin dito 164,000 pesos. So paano naman natin i-compute yung ating raw materials beginning? So dahil meron na tayong direct materials used na 164, so isingit ko lang dito 164,000. So ito na lang yung nawawala, beginning. So 30,000 plus 164,000 minus 78,000, which is the raw materials purchase. So the raw materials beginning will be 206,000 pesos. So lagay natin dito 206,000 pesos. Third requirement, we are looking for the applied factory overhead, which is na-compute natin kanina na hindi natin nalalaman. So ang ating applied factory overhead for letter C, we have 320,000 pesos. Yan. So ang hinahanap, next requirement natin is yung under or over applied factory overhead. In that case, you have to versus it or to compare it with the factory overhead control. So yung actual cost natin is 300K, which is na-compute natin sa taas. Tapos yung applied natin ay 320,000 pesos. In this case, sumobra po tayo ng application kasi yung na-apply natin ay 320,000 pesos, pero yung actual is 300,000 pesos lang. So therefore, meron tayong over application ng 20,000 pesos. So therefore, ang sagot natin sa letter D ay 20,000 pesos over application. Nilagyan natin ng open close parenthesis just to make sure na kapag i-close natin yan, babawasan dapat ang ating cost of goods sold if the variance or over application is immaterial. So if you remember ang recording niyan, for ano lang din, maidagdag ko lang. So magde-debit ka diyan ng, dahil nga babawasan natin ang cost of goods sold, so magde-debit ka diyan ng over applied, tas credit ka ng cost of goods sold. So yung amount na ilalagay mo ay 20,000 pesos para at the end of the day, ang magiging result lang natin ay yung factory overhead control, which is 300,000 pesos. So ayan po yung sagot sa ating number 3. A recap, yung ating direct materials use will be 164,000 pesos. Raw materials January, we have 206,000. Then applied factory overhead, we have 320,000 pesos. And for letter dog, we have over applied factory overhead amounting to 20,000 pesos. Okay, so let's proceed to our problem number 4. So sa problem number 4, these are the requirements. We have to determine the materials purchased, the applied factory overhead, the cost of goods sold, and the total goods placed in process. So in this case, parang pinapagawa na tayo ng cost of goods sold report. So pagbigyan po natin. So para hindi tayo mahirapan, so ang binigay ko sa inyong tip is mag-create na agad kayo ng T account for the 3 major inventory accounts. So meron tayo diyang materials, then we also have the WIP, then we also have the finished goods. So, available naman na yung mga balances. So, ilagay mo na. So, yung beginning natin ng materials, we have 75,000. Then, yung ending yan, we have 85,000. So, yung work in process, we have 80,000. Tapos, yung ating ending work in process, we have 30,000 pesos. Yung finished goods, meron tayong 90,000. Yung ending, 110,000 ng finished goods. So, check nyo na yung mga available na data sa ilalim. So, sa ilalim, meron na tayong materials used na 326, which is part of the manufacturing cost. So, lagay na natin sa ilalim na Ang manufacturing cost, ang composition yan ulit, we have the direct materials, direct labor, and we have the factory overhead. So, given na ang ating manufacturing cost, so magkano daw yan? 686,000 pesos. So, yung materials used daw ng ating manufacturing cost is 326,000 pesos. Lagay natin 326,000. So, sa materials, lagay mo na dito 326,000 pesos. So, ang next statement, sinabi daw dyan, the factory overhead is applied at 80%. So, ay 60% rather. So, ibig sabihin, 60% daw ng DL ay factory overhead. So, dahil nakuha na po natin yung direct materials, ang nawawala na lang is yung direct labor tsaka factory overhead. So, we can use the 60% as a basis in order to distribute the remaining amount to the direct labor and the factory overhead. So, paano natin yung i-distribute? So, dahil yung 60% ng direct labor ay mapupunta sa factory overhead. So, simply, yung difference ng 686 tsaka 326, that represents 160%. Tama ba? So, dahil 160% yan, so 686 minus 326. So, magiging result po niyan ay 360,000 pesos. So, yung 360, hahatiin po yan ng direct labor tsaka ni factory overhead. So, dahil 100% ang mapupunta sa direct labor, so 360,000 pesos divided by 1.6. So, ang ilalagay natin sa direct labor ay 225,000 pesos. For the factory overhead, the difference na lang, 686 minus 225 minus 326, yung ating factory overhead will be 135,000 pesos. So, yung other way to compute for the factory overhead, 225,000 multiplied to 60% kasi ayun yung ating application rate. 225,000 times 60%, the result will also be the same, which is 135,000 pesos. Since complete na yung ating manufacturing cost, so pwede na natin ilagay sa WIP yung 686,000 dito, which is available naman na yung kanina. So, tingnan natin kung kaya na natin hanapin yung mga nawawala. So, yung unang requirement, pinapahanap yung materials purchases. So, ang materials purchases, saan po ba natin yan nakikita? Nakikita po natin yan sa materials inventory. So, given na yung beginning, given na yung ending, given na yung direct materials use, so yung nawawala na lang yung materials purchase. So, pwede na tayong dumiretso sa ating T account. So, 85,000 which is the ending inventory materials plus direct materials used 326 minus beginning materials na 75,000. So, ang result mo nun ay 336,000 which represents the direct materials purchase. So, lagay ko dito 336,000 pesos. How about the applied factory overhead? So, saan makikita yan? Doon sa ating manufacturing cost components, which is yung ating factory overhead amounting to 135,000 pesos. Yung cost of goods sold, paano natin yung makikita? Punta ka doon sa finished goods inventory. So, sa finished goods inventory, ang binigay lang is yung beginning, tapos yung ending. However, may binigay na another information dito, which is yung ating cost of goods available for sale, yung alam na natin na tigas. So, magkano daw yung tigas? 826,000 pesos. So, ililes mo lang po yan sa ending para makuha yung COGS. Diba? So, magkano yan? So, ang magiging result niyan, 826,000 minus 110,000. So, magiging result niyan ay 716,000 pesos. So, 716,000 pesos, that represents the cost of goods sold. So, ilagay ko dyan, 716. So, the total goods placed in process, paano yung makukuha? So, kuhain muna natin yung cost of goods manufactured. So, to get the cost of goods manufactured, so, tigas minus beginning inventory. So, the result will be 736,000 pesos. Paano nakuha yung 736? 826 minus 90,000 pesos. So, ayan yung itatransfer mo dito na 736,000 pesos. Diba? So, para makuha mo yung total goods placed in process, so yung WIP beginning plus manufacturing cost, so 80,000 plus 686, ang malalabas nating sagot dyan ay, so, ang lalabas po na sagot ay 826,000 pesos. So, ilagay ko dun sa last, 826,000 pesos. So, nakuha yung 826,000, i-check ko lang, baka mali. So, meron tayong 80,000 pesos plus 686,000 pesos. So, ang lalabas po pala doon ay mali ako. So, 766,000 pesos. So, 766,000 pesos, that represents total goods placed in process, di ba? So, another way to compute for the total goods placed in process, yung ating WIP ending, which is 30,000 pesos, plus yung cost of goods placed in yung ating cost of goods manufactured na 736. So, the result is 766,000 pesos. So again, to review our answer, the materials purchased is 336,000 pesos. The applied factory overhead is 135,000 pesos. The cost of goods sold is 716,000 pesos. And the total goods placed in process is 766,000 pesos. Okay, so at last, let's proceed to our last problem, which is, ang requirements lang naman is to determine the total goods placed in process, cost of goods sold, and the total applied factory overhead. So let's read the statement. So Watson Manufacturing Company employs a job order cost system and keeps perpetual inventory records. The following transactions occurred during the first month of operation. So please take note, sabi daw dyan, first month of operation. So dahil first month of operation, wala po tayong work in process beginning. So let's proceed. So meron tayong job 101, 102, 103. So meron tayong direct materials, direct labor. Hindi provided ang factory overhead. However, on the next statement, sinabi dyan, manufacturing overhead was applied to jobs work on using predetermined overhead rate, which is 75% of direct labor cost. So gagamitin natin yung 75% to get the factory overhead on each job. And the actual manufacturing overhead incurred during the month amounting to 66,000 pesos. So sabi daw dyan, job 101 consisting of 1,000 units and job 103 consists of 200 units and were completed during the month. However, only the job 101 was delivered to customer. So ang hinahanap ulit, total goods placed in process, cost of goods sold, and the total applied factory overhead. So dahil job order to at na nagbigay ng specific job, so much better na mag-create tayo ng table. So ano ba yung composition ng table natin? So ganito po yung magiging itsura niyan. So meron tayong job 101, 102, 103, then total. Then total ng each job, meron tayong direct materials, direct labor, factory overhead, ang total nun ay manufacturing cost. So ilalatag lang natin yung information. For job 101, we have 22,000 for direct labor, direct materials, direct labor 30,000. Then 75% of that will be part of the factory overhead, so 22,500, and so on and so forth for job 102 and 103. So ang first requirement natin is to determine the total goods placed in process. So as we remember earlier, this is the first month of operations. Ibig sabihin, no work in process beginning. So dahil walang work in process beginning, the total goods placed in process is also equal to the manufacturing cost. So magkano ba ang manufacturing cost na na-compute based sa table? Amounting to 195,000. So therefore, ang sagot natin dito ay 195,000 pesos. How about the cost of goods sold? So dahil nga first month of operation to, wala rin tayong finished goods beginning, di ba? So dahil walang beginning, so ibig sabihin kung ano yung lang na-deliver natin sa customer, kung ano yung nakalagay natin sa total goods available per sale, ayun lang yung magiging ating part ng ating, yung ano lang yung ating cost of goods manufactured, ayun lang po yung magiging composition ng ating total goods available for sale. So based on our statement or based on the statement ng problem, only job 101 was delivered to customer. So dahil job 101 lang yung na-deliver sa customer, yung cost related to job 01, that will be part of our cost of goods sold. So sa case natin, magkano ba ang manufacturing cost ng job 101? We have 74,500. So that amount will be our cost of goods sold. So lagay natin dyan, 74,500. So for the last part, we have to determine the total applied factory overhead. So given na rin yan sa table, which is ito, 57,000 pesos. So lagay natin, 57,000 pesos, which is the combination of 101, 102, 103. So, ayun lang naman yung hinahanap. So, ito lang yung i-compute natin. However, kapag pinakompute further kung magkano, kung meron ba tayong over and under applied, check nyo lang muna. Diba? Yung actual natin, 66. Pero yung ating in-apply ay 57. So basically, sa unang tingin pa lang, meron tayong under application na 66,000 minus 57. So meron tayong 9,000 na under application. Kasi kailangan nating habulin yung 66,000 pero ang ating na-apply lang ay 57,000 pesos. So okay lang naman kasi di naman yun ang hinahanap. Ang hinahanap natin dito ay yung total goods placed in process, the cost of goods sold, and the total applied factory overhead. So ayun lang po yung sagot ng ating quizzes. For if my question, please feel free to message me. Okay, bye-bye, goodbye.